Hello there. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. A whole lot of stuff to get to today with the DeSmith contract extension, Dana Heinze retiring as the Penguins head equipment manager, Penguins closing in on a new contract for Chris Letang. It is an action-packed show today, and we also might get to some more draft stuff as well. So that's all coming up for today's episode, and let's get right on into it.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode for the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So let's start out today's podcast by touching on the DeSmith new 2-year deal. So he's scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent next Wednesday when free agency opened. There were conflicting reports about what the Penguins were trying to do. Josh Yohe of The Athletic was reporting a couple of times that he did not expect DeSmith to be back. David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period then said the Penguins were working on a deal for DeSmith. So it was like, okay, which side is going to be right here? Pagnotta was the one that ended up being right. It is a 2-year deal, $1.8 million per. So the Pittsburgh Penguins goaltending next season with both DeSmith and Jarry locked up, it will account for, my math is correct, $5.3 million of the salary cap, which is totally fine. My overall thoughts on this signing. So I got to say, when I first saw the extension and I saw that he got basically a $600K raise, I'm like, wow, I would love to get that much of a raise after stinking for a good chunk of the season. And then obviously he did bounce back down the stretch, but it was a bit funny that he did end up getting a raise. Does he probably get that money on the open market? Yeah, I mean, it's free agency. Other teams probably would have drove up the price for him there. He honestly could have gotten over $2 million. But at the end of the day, the AAV, it's below 2, whatever. I can laugh all I want about him getting a raise, considering his inconsistencies and his injuries, but that's also, again, that's what the free agent market is going to demand. But they got him below $2 million. He is a decent backup when healthy, and hopefully now this paves the way for the Penguins having a bit more salary cap room to bring back both Letang and Malkin. I'll get to Letang in my second segment. Now, I guess there's some of the I'll say one more negative here. It's definitely a bit weird that they're going to go, this is going to be the third year in a row that they're going to run this tandem. And, sure, Ron Hextall, he's not going to be creative. That's not who he is when he's going out on the free agent market, evaluating players and stuff. He's going to go with what he knows. I wish I was kind of surprised by this deal. I'm not. But it's definitely a big risk again, and they're going to have to live with it. I don't think that both goaltenders will be hurt if this team is in the playoff picture next year. I think they will be, but you can never make it full guarantees here. But DeSmith needs to prove to the organization that he can stay healthy when it matters most. 2 years in a row, he has been banged up around playoff time and has not been available to play when they needed him to play, especially in this season against the Rangers. And you can make the argument last year against the Islanders when Jarry was really stinking it up. So at the end of the day, they made this bed. They are going to have to live with it. But if you do look at his stats, at least a little bit, his save percentage has actually been, league average, a little bit above league average. One of my followers today, I'm trying to go find the tweet here, put his save percentage in there, at least for the last, 3 to 4 to 5 years. And, he's been mostly pretty decent, going back. I believe this was the 2018-19 season. Yeah, 921, 916, 912, 914 this season, 915. So those are pretty steady numbers for a backup. You can certainly make the argument that he is a average to above average backup. In my opinion, I think he's perfectly average. I don't know if he's an above average backup, but when healthy and when he's on his game, he's definitely someone who, he can make you some timely saves. He can steal a few games and all that stuff. What I want the Penguins to do next season, if they can, is to split up the workload a bit more. I'm of the opinion that Tristan Jarry, he cannot start 55 to 60 games next season. He was playing way too much last season. I think that potentially contributed to him being a bit banged up down the stretch. And obviously when Anders Lee rolled into his foot, I mean, part of that's a freak accident, but he was also playing a lot of hockey. And, I also think he was fatigued down the stretch. I think that's what led to his numbers not being as good. So if the Penguins can get the level that they saw from DeSmith in the second half of the regular season for the entirety of the 2022-23 season, this deal will work out just fine, in my opinion. And, I think I actually almost forgot just how good he was in those final 17 games here. His first 9 games of the season, 886 save percentage, 3.6 goals against average. Final 17 games, so he played in almost 30 this year. 927 save percentage, 240 goals against average. Only Igor Shesterkin and Darcy Kemper had better numbers down the stretch than DeSmith. So, we know what he has when he's healthy. We have seen the level, excuse me, that he can play at when he is 100%. It's all a matter of, can he keep that level for an entire season? Because say he doesn't and he turns back into the pumpkin that we saw in the first half of the regular season last year, where he can't stop a beach ball, the Penguins are in a little bit of a pickle again. Because remember when all of us were saying, well, they got to go get a backup at the trade deadline. Jarry can't keep starting every game. And then, obviously DeSmith, pulled a miracle out of his butt and started playing well. Would Lightning be able to strike twice there? No, I'm not sure. But the biggest things for me, if this deal is going to work out, in my opinion, can he stay healthy? And, can he be consistent when he is in the net and not go months at a time when he's playing like absolute crap to then at looking like, honestly, a top 10 to top 15 goaltender in the league. So I'm glad that the AAV is low, 2 years, whatever. It's definitely a little weird that it's going to be 3 to 4 seasons in a row of the same tandem. I would have liked them to go out and get a 1B option, but then, you're potentially looking at paying, 1.2 to 1.3 million for someone like, I don't know, Braden Holtby, who I talked about, but I think he maybe could have come cheaper, Ville Husso, Yaroslav Halak, and a couple of these other options. So the Penguins, they go with who they know. They signed DeSmith to a 2-year contract with 1.8 million per. Goaltending is only going to take up a little more than 5 million. That's another big part for this. If you're going to be a successful team in the salary cap era, you do not want a lot of money going to your goaltenders. Even if you have an elite goaltender on your team, sure, he can take up, 9 to 10 million of your cap, well, maybe a little less. I think Shesterkin's about to get a whole lot of money once he's eligible to pay, Vasilevsky, Carey Price. But if you have a backup who is making pennies on the dollar, that's what's best there. And for the Penguins here, they have 2, when healthy, reliable goaltenders. It's all a matter of, can they stay healthy? Can they produce? There's definitely a lot of question marks when it comes to them, but, they're not paying them a lot of money. Jarry's contract is up after next season. I would be very cautious about extending him. I have seen that a lot on different platforms during the offseason here. I would want to see how he plays and then think about an extension, because I wouldn't want to just commit to him and then, oh, wow, he absolutely stinks for part of this season. But again, I'm glad that the goaltending is not taking up too much cat room. I have my negative qualms for this deal, but I also have some positive ones. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal for me, especially when we get to the Chris Letang stuff in the second segment, and it looks like that's coming to a head here really soon. So that wraps up this first segment with getting into the Casey DeSmith deal. Now, before we get to the Chris Letang report from Dejan Kovacevic, from the people who invented Healthy and Tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk, Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built Bar have given coconut brownie chunk the puffs treatment. That's right, coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They are good for you. They're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all of them are delicious. They're only here for a limited amount of time. You can go to thebuilt.com right now to make sure you don't miss out. They are going fast because they taste amazing. You can go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So this came out at about 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. Dejan tweeted, a source tells you that the Penguins and Letang are close on a contract extension. I've got no detail beyond that, but source sure made it sound like it'll get done. And I've also heard that it's going to be for 3 years. That's all I've got at this time. So far, none of the national guys have said anything regarding that. Hopefully it gets done maybe tomorrow, Thursday, before the first round of NHL draft. But this is great news. And the fact that it might be only a 3-year term is even better. If the Penguins can potentially, get the term they want, but then have to bend a little bit to give Letang more money, that's not a big deal to me. I think in that case, both sides win. Remember, Friedman has been saying for a while, the Penguins, they're going to have to really bend a little bit to get this done. And I think part of that is, the AAV. I don't think they're probably too crazy about giving him over $8 million, though I think that's probably what's going to happen here. If it is a 3-year term, Yins, I would have to guess it's going to be 8.2 to 8.5 million per. And I know some people are going to be like, well, that's too much for someone who's 35 years old, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, he's going to make less than Sidney Crosby. We would think he'll make less than Sidney Crosby. Sure, he'll make more than Evgeni Malkin if he comes back, but he'll also go out with Sid at the same time. They will have, they will have their individual decisions to do what they want once both of their contracts are up after the 2025 season. So, both sides would get what they want. The Penguins, obviously, they're not crazy about giving out 4 to 5 years of term to Letang if the 3 years is reported as accurate. So they want Letang. He gets the raise that he wanted. Voila, shake hands. He plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, hopefully for the next 3 years. Again, there's been no official announcement from the team or from any of the national guys yet tonight. If there is something while this recording happens, I will sure to let you all know. Or if something happens on Wednesday, you all will be the first to know as well. So this is going to be, once this is done, and it looks like it's very much heading that way, this is going to be a very well-deserved extension for Letang, and I will give kudos to Ron Hextall once that official announcement is made. He had no choice but to bring back Chris Letang. People can chronicle this deal in quotation marks. If those that are on Penguins Twitter will know what I mean by that. But people can also whine and complain that it's too much money, this and that. They've had 4 first-round exits in a row. Those people, they can't see the forest from the trees. Just tell them that. Chris Letang is not the reason this team has lost 4 series in a row. He has helped them win 3 Stanley Cups. People will also say that, he wasn't in the playoffs during the 2017 run. Yeah, but I will also argue that they won that series off the coattails of Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury, giving them elite level goaltending, and Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Evgeni Malkin having some of the best finishing I've ever seen in a Penguin playoff run. They were outskated, outchanced basically every game in that series, but it was their star players that won the day and their goaltending. It did not matter because those 5 players showed up for the Penguins. Don't even get me started on how bad the defense was during that run. Ron Heinze was playing top line minutes. No one should be winning a Stanley Cup with Ron Heinze having top pairing minutes with Brian Dumoulin. There are so many weirdos about this player, and I'm really excited that he is hopefully going to be signing this extension. His underlying numbers were elite last year. His counting stats elite last year. top 10 in North voting. He's finished top 10 in 3 or 4 of the last 6 seasons. He is one of the best defensemen in the league. There was no one on the free agent market that was going to put up the production that he had. There is no one on the free agent market that will put up the production that he put up this past year. Full stop. That's it. John Klingberg ain't going to walk through that door and do that. Nikita Zadorov, he's not going to do that. All these other defensemen who are out there who it's, they're some of them are decent players, but it's a big drop off once you go from Letang to Klingberg and then to Zadorov and then to everything in between. So, great news for the Penguins. This looks like it's going to be the first domino to fall. We'll see when it is reported, but man, I am just absolutely fired up right now. Once that's announced, one down, one to go. And that'll be, of course, Evgeni Malkin, who was working out in a Penguin hat with his son Nikita down in Florida. Shout out to whoever made those hats, by the way. Those are some sexy freaking hats. But just great news. I'm really getting amped about Letang being back here for the next 3 years. And, for those that have never listened to this podcast before, I've been on record saying, when the offseason started, I thought Malkin was going to be the one that easily gets done. I thought Letang was going to be a lot harder. I think it was going to be 50-50. It could go either way. No, my tune has changed now. Letang is obviously looks like it's going to get done. And Malkin, I think it's right now it's potentially a below 50% chance that he is brought back. I will say to you all, though, I was exchanging DMs with Rossi, Rob Rossi of The Athletic. He was wondering where I got that screenshot from Pierre. Obviously, it was Pierre LeBrun who wrote the story on Monday. And he said he's going to be having an update on the Malkin contract talks on Wednesday morning on The Athletic. So you all can go check that out there. I'm sure there'll be something when it comes to Chris Letang there too. So great. It's great that it looks like this extension is going to get done. And that's hopefully 2/3 of the core at least coming back for the Penguins next season. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to get into the news from Dana Heinze stepping down as the Penguins head equipment manager. But before I get to that, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Why should you choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business or do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you can need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. You can go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. You can go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for a car, truck, and you can write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That is rockauto.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So definitely something that I did not think I would be talking about today on the podcast, but Dana Heinze has stepped down after 33 years as an equipment manager. Michelle Crecchiolo had a great story on the team's official site today, and a couple quotes from Heinze here. He said he started in 1988. It's 2022. Apparently he's going to be honored by the Penguins at a game during this upcoming season. He says, I'm leaving on my own terms. It's been a magical, long trip. And it goes into just, the story with him and how he was able to get to the Penguins and all that stuff. But, he's been here forever. He has been doing this at an elite level for so long. And the Penguins are going to miss him. There's so many funny Dana Heinze stories, especially when, you watch the old In the Room videos. The one I remember the most was, I believe this was the 2014 Olympics. And Dana's having this hilarious discussion with Evgeni Malkin because Sid has his Canadian logo on his bag. They're about to go to the Olympics. And Gino's like, well, Dana, where's my logo? And Dana just keeps like joking with him, like, well, why didn't Russia send that for you? Oh my God, what the heck? And he's just toying with him basically. And, just all the players on the team, no matter who came in, who came out, always had, the utmost respect for him. He's, Sid, another funny story about Sid, as I blurted that out loud and I don't know why. Sid was on, I believe this was a few years back. I think it was the Spit and Chicklets podcast or something with, Whitney and them. And, I'm not a fan of that podcast. Ryan Whitney is just absolutely obnoxious. But he was talking about Dana and how Sid, he's used the same, I think he said it was the same cup or jockstrap for the last 14, 15 years when he was on that podcast. And poor Dana had to basically wash it every single week or after every single game, basically. And it's like that poor guy has had to wash that when Sid has just not wanted to change. I mean, that thing has just been through so much hell. So there's just so many freaking stories when it comes to him. And, Dana also says in the story, all the players I've been associated with, regardless of whether it was the East Coast League or the National Hockey League, I've been so blessed to be around such great people and being part of the very classic organizations. He also said the Penguins are going to be in great hands with these guys. They have John Tagliani, Paul DeFazio, and Danny Kroll. He says they're going to continue on doing great stuff. I'm honored to say that I was a Pittsburgh Penguin for 16 years. Now I think it's time to take on the next journey, which I think is going to be great. So it sounds like he's going to be moving back to Johnstown, where he was originally from. Again, congratulations to Dana on a wonderful career as the Penguins head equipment manager. He's a true legend for everything he did for this team. So want to shout him out a lot for this third segment on today's episode. And so let's get to a little more draft stuff here. A couple players that are in Jason and I's, we have them in the in range at 21. Isaac Howard, he's a left winger, left-hand shot, a couple NHL comps that we have for him. Matt Zuccarello, Braden Point, probably not going to ride until 2025. We think he's probably one of the most dynamic players in the draft. His hands are absolutely ridiculous. The plays that he's made with the puck in the junior leagues, nothing short of sensational. Really nice skater. Though I think kind of need to see a little bit of a burst a bit. He can take one-on-one defenders with ease. He can make them miss pretty nicely. He has a beautiful shot, pure goal scorer. He's obviously not that big, 5'10", 182. He definitely put some pounds on him, but I definitely think he is going to be at that pick if the Penguins want to take him. Owen Pickering, I think has been getting a lot of love for some scouts lately. 6'4" defenseman, 178 pounds, shoots left. Couple comps from him that we have: Keandre Miller, Travis Sanheim. We think he's going to be arriving in the next couple of years. Nice size, elite athleticism, really nice skater. When I watch someone like Keandre Miller in the playoffs with how big he is, the first thing that jumped out to me was his skating and honestly his puck moving ability. And, I think with Pickering, those same traits, jumped out at me immediately when I put the tape on, when I went on YouTube and stuff. And, Jason said the same thing. I think he is above average in offense, good with controlled zone exits and zone entries. He's obviously a bit raw right now, but, I definitely think that he has the potential to be a top 4 defenseman on the Pittsburgh Penguins or any team, to be honest with you. And then let's see. I'll give you all one more before I get to some more on Wednesday. Liam Ogren, left winger, 6'1", 200 pounds, couple comps for him. Timo Meier, Brock Besser, he could be ready to go as early as not this coming season, but the next season. Pure goal scorer. He can really get to the high danger areas of the net, but he can honestly score from anywhere on the ice. Defensively, that definitely, I think, needs work. He's not usually good away from the puck. I think I've noticed, there's some puck watching with him and all that jazz. But, this is still a player that can put the puck in the back of the net, a good playmaker as well with the puck on his stick. Skating could use a little bit of work, but he's played most of his career, overseas. I would be curious to see how his game transforms once he comes over to North America, because that makes a world of difference for these kind of players. So there's another small tease into some players on our draft board for players that are definitely probably going to be available to the Penguins at that range. I'll have more draft stuff on Wednesday for you all. Thursday, I'm either going to do an episode before the first round of the draft, or the plan might be to go live on the YouTube channel and basically do an episode there right after the Penguins make their first round pick, give my thoughts on that, potentially bring on a guest. Like I brought Jesse Marshall on for the trade deadline and all that stuff. So that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one. I will be back with another episode on Wednesday. We'll see if we get more clarity on the Letang contract, see if more numbers get out, and potentially if there's any trades around the NHL and all that jazz. Very busy time period. Draft's in a couple of days. Free agencies next week. Keep it right here on Locked On Penguins. I'll have everything for you all as it breaks.